the WrestleMania Minutes on Down the Aisle Wrestling Podcast with Robbie Mack and Kevin Laramie. Here's Kevin Laramie. WrestleMania 7, live from the LA Memorial Sports Arena, but it was supposed to be in the Coliseum, Rob.
It sure was, Kevin. They announced a year in advance that the WrestleMania 7 would be held at the LA Memorial Coliseum, which holds 100,000 people. Now, if you would remember back to this time, they were doing the whole angle where Sergeant Slaughter was an Iraqi sympathizer. So they used the excuse that there was way too many security risks to have it at the LA Memorial Coliseum, when in reality, the only security risk was that they weren't going to be able to fill up the fucking stadium.
It was a wallet security issue.
Yeah, it was, we're not going to make enough money security issue.
The attendance was 16,158 people that saw Hulk Hogan face Sergeant Slaughter as the Iraqi sympathizer, Rob. And first of all, what do you remember from that pay-per-view? Do you remember the main event and nothing else like I do?
I remember... No. The biggest thing that I remember is the Warrior Savage career-ending match, which was the best match of the show. Probably the best match of Warrior's career. And the fact that the Gulf War had been over for 2 months. So, I mean, a lot of people will remember the whole American-themed gimmick, which was fine. You know, they were trying to get behind the troops and stuff. But even though the war was over, I had no issues with that. But yeah, for me, the career-ending match with with Savage and Warrior, that was the match for me that stole the show.
Absolutely. A couple of great matches you saw there. You saw there was Legion of Doom. Hawk and Animal defeated Power and Glory. There's Paul Roma and Hercules. That was stupid. Virgil with the company with Roddy Friday. A very rare victory for Virgil, who defeated Ted DiBiase by countout. You don't see nowadays, but one of our favorite of Down the Aisle Wrestling Podcast, Rob, was the co-main event of that pay-per-view. Did you know that?
Yes, absolutely.
The Mountie with Jimmy Hart defeated Tito Santana. Two boys from Montreal fighting it out there.
That's great. Yep, the co-main event. Yeah, because the career-ending match was in the middle of the card, and then they had an intermission, did a reset, and then we went towards the end of there. And isn't it funny that a year ago that we were talking about, well, not a year ago, but I mean, a year prior to this, Hogan was losing the title, and what was happening this year, Kevin?
He wins the title on the biggest stage of them all against a real heel as Sergeant Slaughter. Hulk Hogan, Mr. USA, is having the Stars and Stripe in his hand, waving it really hard, and being the main event and main attraction of that show once again.
Yeah, it was kind of things. As much as things change, the more they stay the same.
And yeah, it would be the same for a couple years still. And the one thing that we can say will be a lasting memory from this show is how WWE was scared to go back to that type of stadium. It took a couple years still before they go back to the amount of people they had at WrestleMania 3.
Well, I think they banked on when you got to say that the whole thing wasn't poorly built. It just, I don't think Hogan and Slaughter was going to draw a lot of money.
Hogan didn't draw as much in 1991 as he did in the mid-80s as well.
And I think maybe if you switched WrestleManias, if you had Hogan and Warrior headline this show, they might have had a chance of selling it out. And it's funny, isn't it funny, Kevin? All these years later, next year, they're going to try to do 100,000 people in a stadium for WrestleMania.
Yeah, once again, at WrestleMania that me and Rob are planning to attend. It's going to be our first pilgrimage to the Mecca of professional wrestling, which is going to be WrestleMania. Unfortunately, the Sportatorium doesn't exist anymore. Otherwise, me and you, Rob, would have made a pilgrimage to the old Sportatorium as well.
I'm sure you and I will find lots of old school wrestling stuff to get into down there, so I'm not too concerned at all.
One of my goals, if we could say, for WrestleMania next year, Rob, is to get Yvonne Eric on the show.
Yes. There's not too many of them left, but I'm sure we can find one.
We'll get Kevin, which is the one with the most prettiest name of them all, the whole family as well.
Oh, and what's Lacey Von Erich?
All right, that wraps it up for WrestleMania 7. Next minute is going to be WrestleMania 8. Talk to you soon. Roy Rose. Yeah, the Woo one. Exactly. Ric Flair, baby.
Mm-hmm.